Our good friend, Enrique Sanchez, joins us tonight to talk about backyard cultivation. He's been a member of the MSSF for over 20 years, helping the club in many capacities. He's led forays, taught cultivation, spent 3 years as the speaker chair. He's currently a member of the council, and I'm sure I'm missing a lot here. Enrique is also a member of BAAM, the Bay Area Applied Mycology Club. He spent the last 36 years building his property into a living, breathing horticulture experiment with not 1 square inch of wasted space. He cultivates oyster mushrooms, shiitake, stropharia, and chlorophyllum bruneum for starters, and maybe more. There are over 25 species of cactus that dominate the landscape of his property, from little petite ornate cacti to towering species that loom overhead. Of course, there are many varieties of trees, fruits, and flowers, and at least 1 bee box hiding in there somewhere. So tell us about it, Enrique.
All right, thank you for that great introduction. Alrighty. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining, tuning in to hear me. So yes, I've been a member since about 2001. And I didn't know anything, but I was interested. So I just went to 2-3 meetings, and I sat in at the rando and in the auditorium, and I liked what I heard. So I joined. And so the monthly meetings were great. And then there was this project out at the Presidio, and Ken Lynchfield was in charge of that. So I went out there, and by helping, I learned. And we did a whole bunch of cultivating out there. We put down straw, inoculated bags, and we grew some mushrooms. So let me just say, where to begin? Backyard cultivation. Is it for fun, for curiosity, for science, for food, help your budget? There's all sorts of reasons. Some people even might want to tinker and try to get some mycorrhizal stuff in their backyard, which I have not succeeded. When going out to pick morels, I'll put the stumps in a different bag, and then I have a corner way in the back on the right side of the yard where I'll put the bottom of the morel mushrooms, the bases. And when I do my campfires in the backyard, I'll add that ash over, and so I mix it, but no success in 30 years. But there's oak trees back there, and buckeyes, and maybe something will be mycorrhizal with the someday. So the things that I grow in the backyard: shaggy parasols, bluets. Well, let's start with the shaggy parasols. When I worked in San Francisco, I worked on Geary Boulevard, and I often walking to work or going to lunch in Golden Gate Park, I'd see all these shaggy parasols, which are now called Microlipiota procera. And so I would take them, I wouldn't eat them, I would just plant them in the yard, throw them in the yard. And little by little, they started coming up. Maria, can you show that first photo, please? So that's how my yard looked when I first moved in. That's my Akita friend, Merlin. He was about 6 months old then. And that's 125 by 75 feet of backyard. And so what I started doing was I started putting straw, and I also did a little biodynamic work back there. I sprayed 501, which is a whole nother thing. It basically encompasses your area, and a whole bunch of atmospheric mumbo jumbo biodynamic good stuff happens, which I will not go into. So next photo, please. So what I did, I would put straw, cardboard, grass trimmings, and eventually the yard just transformed itself from hard clay. And what you're seeing here, this is on the left side in the back of the yard, nowhere near where I planted my garden giant. The garden giant was way on the right side, and it moved and came up in this spot. And so what I did, I just added, after it fruited, and they were nice garden giants, yum yum. So what I did to continue its growth, I just kept adding newspaper. Sometimes I put horse manure in there. It seems to work. Sometimes a little molasses works with water. And I've kept this patch going for like a few years. And when you want to start your garden giant, you want to, or oysters per se, you get some straw and you either bag it up in a big old bag and keep it enclosed for at least 3 days. If you go more than 3, 4, 5 days, it's going to get all stinky. So don't make that mistake. Whew. I've done it in those blue barrels and then I forgot about it and it was not fun. So the reason for enclosing the straw in water for 3 days is to sterilize it. And you poke holes at the bottom afterwards, let it all run out. And you find the source of what you want to grow. In this case, garden giant, Stropharia rugosa, and you put it in a bag. What I did, I took half the straw out and started spreading in the yard, and the remaining half of the bag I left with the remainder part of the mycelium. And that mycelium came from a friend named Mino, who's over at BAAM. And he's also an MSSF member. So after I inoculated the straw, I spread it out. I covered it with layers of newspaper, added more straw. Sometimes I put a little bit of horse manure, then more straw, then more cardboard. Did I mention cardboard before? Cardboard's important. A good source of cardboard is go to your local Costco. And when their shelves are starting to, their products go down in layer, they have big sheets of cardboard in between all their cans and what have you. So I just go in, can I get some cardboard? And they say, sure. So I walk out like 10 to 12 10 by 10, 10 by 12 sheets of cardboard, and they're wonderful. You just tear off the plastic on there, the tape. And so you sit and wait, go about your life, and sooner or later, these wonderful garden giants mushrooms come up. And what I've learned with working with Ken, they don't come up where you plant them. They go where they want to go. We had some over at the Presidio where they came up along with the chard, with the lettuce. And the observation was that whatever they came up and grew next to, those vegetables were huge compared to vegetables that the garden giant was nowhere nearby. So it's a real good mushroom to eat, to grow, and it comes up in the sun when it's sunny. It's not like it's going to come up when it's raining cold, and it'll come up when it warms up. Next slide, please. So this is another area of the yard where I did plant the substrate, the mycelium, and you can tell that I have straw there, and it flowered very nicely. And so I have cactus on the side, cactus on the right, and a apricot tree. But this little area, after the mushrooms flowered, came up, I noticed that there's still mycelium. So I kept adding straw. And in this case, I added wood chips because I have a little electric wood chipper. So my elms keep shooting off little shoots, and that's a nice hardwood. And I have an acacia where I also chipped out those acacia and added because they like hardwood. And next slide, please. Now this is the Presidio, where Ken and I were back in 2001 or so. And you can see it's basically the same. There's a bunch of straw, and you can see those garden giants right there just in front of the flowers. And they were tasty. I always consider them to look like the tops of hamburger buns. And those are small. They can get quite large. If you ever seen God, I forget his name. There's a book where they show some big ones. Next photo, please. And back to my yard. I flipped over the cardboard and the straw and the wood chips, and you can see that's new stuff growing up from below. So when it gets warm, maybe April, May, I'll be having some more garden giants. And that brings me to bluets. When I forgot about the shaggy parasols. So I created this habitat of just putting down straw, cardboard, grass clippings. I'd stop by on my way home or just walking around, driving. And if anybody was mowing their lawn, can I have your grass clippings, And I've had tons and tons of wood chips brought to the house, and then I started chipping my own branches. So if you keep giving it food, substrate, they don't have to go away. You might want to get another block or so to reinforce it, but from what I've learned, you can just keep adding substrate and they'll keep coming up. Next photo, please. Thank you, Maria, for flipping photos. This is the Presidio back in 2001, and Ken had this great idea to put mushrooms in a barrel there, a plastic barrel, metal barrel, and these are oysters. And what was used here was bedding for animals. At the Rando at the time, they were using certain kind of bedding for their animals, and Ken was gracious enough to commandeer some, and the Rando was very accommodating, and so they're like little clusters, little tiny pieces of hardwood. And when you wet them, they just take the water real nicely, and the oysters just love them. So you can also get bedding that they have for hamsters or what have you. That works too. And it was really nice working there at the Presidio. Next photo, please. This is back on the left side of the yard, exposing the mycelium that's there. It looks pretty darn healthy. And next photo, please. Next one, please, because that's the back on the right side. And so this is one of the things you can do at, this is at the Presidio, and then I proceeded to do the same thing at home. What was done here on those pots, drilled holes so that the logs could absorb the moisture, and then oysters came out of there also. But at home, what I did was the logs, my elm tree fell during a storm in December 10th, like 10 years ago. So I kept a lot of the logs and I just inoculated them with shiitake and lion's mane, and no lion's mane has come up. But when I'll cut into one once in a while, and sure enough, there's mycelium. So hopefully one day I'll get some lion's mane out of those logs. But just in case, I'm going to go buy some more plugs and replug them just to reinforce. And hopefully I'll get some lion's mane soon. Next photo, please. And that's the hericium. Now this is oyster. Now you see I have a huge yard. I'm fortunate to have a big yard. Some people have apartments, and it's like, so what do? I don't have a big yard. So what you do is you get a plastic bag, and these are little sandwich bags. And what we did, this is thanks to Mike Slamma, one of my friends from BAAM, Bay Area Applied Mycology. He thought just what I said. What if somebody doesn't have a big yard or something, or they want to experiment? And he came up with this method that he shared with the group, and he said I can share it with you guys here. So what I do in my yard, what we did at the Presidio, what we're doing with these bags, it's we're not using anything that's sterile except for the straw in the bag, but it's not 100% sterile like in a sterile chamber. So this is good, you know, because you're working with the earth and tinkering and seeing what'll grow with what you have, and without a lot of tools, sterile chambers and what have you. Next photo, please. So this is one of the bags. The writing on that bag fell off, but one of them is what was one of these. We had 3-4 different ways of stuffing those bags with oyster spawn, and some had pecan pellets. And now these pellets are the pellets that you buy at Walmart for cooking. You know, your wood pellets for your fireplace, and they're hardwood, so they're an excellent source of substrate if you want, because you just add moisture, add your mycelium, and just give it time. So some of these had gypsum, lime. Vermiculite works well because it holds water, and some plants, especially plants like Stropharia, garden giant, they like hydrogen, a little hydrogen peroxide. I forgot to mention that earlier. It's they use it as a source of food. And so next photo, please. So here's the experiment written a different way, just like this previous photo, but written differently. And Mike was nice enough to put at the bottom, no eating till dried mushrooms are weighed and recorded, because we were doing an experiment to see how much we got out of the bags and which ones failed, which ones got contaminated. So this little bag that you saw in the photo, we did this in 2019, and I put this bag in the garage up where it couldn't be seen. So I have all these experiments all over the house, and I had to get my own refrigerator. So the reason I put it way up on top is because my wife will find something and she goes, now what do you got? So I didn't have to explain this one to her because she didn't find it. And so the reason for the other refrigerator is so I have my experiments in there, and she doesn't have to worry about it. The other thing was, my wife came home one day and I'm using her blender. She goes, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm whipping up some conchs. And she goes, what the heck are you using my blender for? I go, it's okay. It's not super dry. So I had to go out and get my own blender. And so anyway, next photo. Now this here is a trunk that was chopped off and kind of inoculated, I think with, I'm not sure, it could have been lion's mane. And that's the perimeter of the garden. And it was poison oak on the other side, and our side, but we cleared it out. And, next photo, please. And this is in front of my house. And that's the elm tree that I topped off. And that's the one that's inoculated with garden giant. But a few years back, Daniel Brinkley was over the house and he looked at one of my stumps and he goes, oh my God. I said, what? And he goes, you've got Namiko growing on those elm logs. I said, oh, I didn't know that. So when you go out mushrooming, when you hang out with mushroom people, it's always good to hang out with somebody that knows more than you, because you'll learn a lot. So more than two, more than three, the better. Then the knowledge gets spread and you learn something. Like once I was up in Mendocino, there were no mushrooms, but one of the women in the group, she goes, these are huckleberries. So we harvested huckleberries, didn't go home empty. So this tree's been inoculated with Hericium, lion's mane, but it hasn't fruited, but it did give me Namikos. Yep, I always have the hardest time remembering that word. Next photo, please. And this is stinkhorn. So one thing that I used to do after our meetings, because when we met at the random, we'd all bring the mushrooms we found, and they were at a table. They got ID'd at the end of the meeting. They were tossed. And also after the fungus fairs, we throw away all those bags of used mushrooms that we use for display. So what I would do, I'd take them home and I would just toss them in the backyard. And I started getting stinkhorns, Clotheris ruber. So I was talking to Alan Rockefeller, and he got interested that I had these in my backyard. And Alan, he does a lot of stuff on the computers, and he documents this and he documents that, and he discovers new species of mushrooms. And he noticed that stinkhorn was not registered in the East Bay for some reason. So he asked if he can use my the one in my backyard. So I said, sure, why not? So we'll go to the next photo, please. And I was there when over at Omni Commons, there's a lab there, and Alan sequenced it, and then he sent it off, and it's in some database. And so it's official that mushroom in my backyard is right there in that little red dot. And it's registered Gen Lab. And so that's pretty interesting, you know, that something in your backyard could end up on some registry of data, which is pretty cool. Thank you, Alan. And so you never know, you know, well, our kids, they knew not to eat the mushrooms that they saw. They would ask, they'd learn. So I was never worried that they'd eat the wrong mushrooms. And besides, stinkhorns get pretty stinky after a while. So next photo, please. You can grow mushrooms almost on anything. I found this one on the internet. So I'm going to spend a little time on when I joined BAAM and Bay Area Applied Mycology. They're real big on bioremediation. You know, we live on this planet, and too much waste goes on. So BAAM tries to rectify that by doing what they can with fungi. They had a project on how to eat up oil using inoculated straw. We also did a project out on one of the reservoirs out here, the Orinda Reservoir, where we inoculated Stropharia on straw bale and then put it on the perimeter of the reservoir because there was cattle grazing, and we used the Stropharia to capture the E. coli. And recently, there's a group, the group is with the help of, I think it's East Bay mud, or when they cut down the elm trees, instead of spraying them with pesticide to kill the stumps, they're letting us inoculate them with mushroom. So instead of having a pesticide runoff, we're having edible mushrooms. And careful when you're stepping through the poison oak to get those. And Pascal, I can't remember the name of the person who's leading that project right now over at BAAM. But anyway, it's a real good project, a real good group, and a lot of those members are in both groups. So it's a real good group to be a part of. Bluets. I also had bluets in the backyard, and I was so excited when they came up because I didn't expect it, and it turns out it came out from one of those bags that I just dumped out in the backyard. And with bluets, you just keep topping off the substrate. You know, they like green grass clippings and tree leaf mulch and stuff. So you keep adding that, and in that little area where the bluet came up, I had 3 years in a row with bluets, and hasn't happened anymore. So I've mentioned the shaggy parasols, the bluets, the mimico, the garden giant, the oysters, and the stinkhorn that's been in my yard. And one of the reasons that I do this, it's fun, you know, it's I'm at home, don't have to go out, and there's a Japanese phrase, and it's in English it's forest shining bathing, but it's Shinrin Yoku, which stands for forest bathing. And so I do it in my backyard. And what mushrooms do for me in my life is they help me see the profound beauty and mystery in the universe. And there's also Japanese for that, and it's called Yugen, spelled Y-U-G-E-N. So mushrooms are important. They can kill you, they can teach you, but they're there for us to discover. There are many, many, many lessons they have for us. And so that's what I have. I was going to say more. So I'm going to open it up to questions, and then maybe I'll come up with something else to say. All righty.
Enrique,
Yes.
the unexpected mushroom that came on that elm that you had inoculated with like Hericium and other stuff, what was that?
That was the Japanese Nimiko?
Mimiko.
N-A,
Okay.
the little brown little clusters of brown little mushroom caps.
Right.
Yeah.
And did you inoculate for that, or?
No, they just came up on the elm. So I did a little research and found out that they do come up with elm, a hardwood.
Mm-hmm.
So I've eaten them, put them in soup. They're quite tasty in soup. And I forgot to mention what Maria was saying about Far West fungi. I also have shiitakes out in the yard, which I probably didn't put a photo in for, but you get your straw, you put your straw, and I like to use cardboard, so I'll put cardboard, some straw, and then I'll put my shiitake logs from Far West fungi, and just don't let them dry out. And right now is a good time to put them out because they're not going to dry out, and then you'll have shiitakes come up. You can dry them, you can give them to friends, have soup, but I like giving them to friends because I can never eat them all. Yes. And it's good to support the Far West fungi because they've done a lot for us. So if you call them up and say you want to go, rate their piles, they'll hook you up. Isn't that right, Paul?
$15.
Aha, yes, indeed. Yeah. So. Sorry, my presentation was so short. I thought it'd be longer.
Enrique, did you
guess not.
say that the mushrooms made your vegetables grow bigger? Did I?
Yes. The garden giant, the Stropharia rugosa, they have this good habit
What are
of
they,
whatever they
mycorrhizal
grow
with vegetables?
next to. Yes. You don't have to plant them. You plant them somewhere else, and they'll find the vegetables and come up right next to them. And they're not supposed to be mycorrhizal, but for some reason, you can see the roots are right there with the mycelium.
Really?
And there's some kind of, even though there's saprophytic, that's what I forgot to mention. All the mushrooms that I harvest at the house are saprophytic. They're decomposing mushrooms. I have never had any luck with mycorrhizal mushrooms. And, but yes, these are all saprophytic. They break down wood mass. And it's a good thing my wife buys a lot of stuff on Amazon because I have all the cardboard I can use. Yeah.
Mhm.
I said, no, don't throw that one out. I've got a spot for it. Yeah. And when I first moved out, the wood, the clay was so hard, Now I just put my shovel in and poop, there it goes. Put some compost out there or add some wood chips. Never enough wood chips, I tell you.
How
and
big is your farm back there? You got back.
What was that?
How big is your acreage there that you're cultivating?
It's 125 feet by 75 feet.
Are you in the city limits?
No, yes, I am in Concord, city limits.
And there are no restrictions on the creatures that you're permitted to cultivate and.
Well, I have a beehive back there, and as long as it's 3 to 5 feet away from your neighbor's fence, you're good to go.
Gotcha.
I had 2 hives. One of them died this year, but the other one's still going strong. So I'll just clean out that first one and smear it with some lemongrass and put a few bananas in front. And then come spring, which is coming up, it'll probably have some new family move in. I've had that happen before with my beehives.
Oh.
Clean it out, they come in. Yeah.
I have a question. Do
was that?
you cultivate mushrooms year long in your, or is it just during the rainy season?
All year long.
Wow.
Yeah. Like I said, the Stropharia likes to come out in the heat.
Oh.
Yeah, because we noticed at the Presidio, there's always a fog bank that goes over the Presidio, but in the summer, June, July, we were harvesting the Stropharia garden giant out there.
Enrique, do you have an average haul or yield per year? Are we talking multiple pounds, or is it onesies and twosies, enough for dinner one night?
Well, at first it was, a pound here, a pound there, and it's not hasn't been as productive because I haven't revamped it with new mycelium. And I've been working too much to really do anything back there, but come March, I'll be working less and I'll be able to get back out there and do something. It has tinkered off a little.
Would you say it's enough to keep you from wanting to go forage for wild mushrooms?
No, not at all. No.
Okay.
No, 'cause- no. You never know what you find. Like it sounds like a alabaster, but it's not a. It's this beautiful bluish cluster of it's like a
Albatross.
albatross. Found that, and that was just incredible. It's gorgeous, you know.
Wow.
So, yeah, you just can't stay home. You know, you got to do both. But
Good to hear.
yeah, and you know, like people in apartments that can do this in a cardboard box, put it by the sun with sunny window, and you'll get oysters. And I've noticed, I found out that instead of relying on friends to get you logs or blocks, you can just go online, and so many people sell them. You can order some to get delivered to your house, or go buy some from Far West Fungi. And it brings me to the membership. When I was getting ready for this meeting, I remembered I haven't paid my dues. It's because usually we pay our dues in December at the fungus fair, and we don't have the fungus fair in December anymore. And I didn't go to this one in a couple of weeks ago. So I haven't paid my dues. So if you haven't paid your dues, pay your dues, because that's important.
Enrique, I've seen spiraceous growing on pine trees, and I'm wondering if you had a pine stump, if you could inject it with spiraceous mycelia and end up with a little thing that looks like a brain coral. I wondered if you could get it to grow on that.
You might, you never know. I just don't have any pine. I have all hardwoods, but I don't see why not. So somebody can give it a shot, or I'll give it a shot. I'll find me a piece of pine somewhere and give it a shot.
There's enough
Great.
down pines after this windstorm, so somebody ought to have
Yes.
one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing what you can do with what's laying around, you know. You don't always have to go buy something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And also redirect your gutter water. Get some barrels and let it come down the barrel, and then hose at the other end, and you can water that way. Or use the water when you need it. So,
Somebody in the chat is asking whether you have tried or succeeded with chicken of the woods.
oh, you know, I have not. I really haven't tried it. I find them out when I'm out, so I don't really try to do it at home. But I guess I could. There's some nice trees up near Murphy I wouldn't mind getting a hold of and bringing some home. Because I was going to Lake Alpine, and there was some logs down there and on the right side, and they had plenty of beautiful edible chicken of the woods. Yeah. What you do is you carve out a little piece of that, get back a little past the bark, bring it home, and just with cardboard, put
Yeah.
it closer, get the fire, and give it a shot. Why not? That would be great. Chris, Selma Berkeley sells non-herbicide sprayed straw. That's good to know, because when I use horse droppings, manure, I try to find source horse dung that hasn't been sprayed, or because sometimes the horses are given injections of steroids and what have you. So try to find
Who
a good
goes around
source of.
spraying horse dung, for crying out loud?
What was that?
There's somebody going around spraying horse dung out there? Let's see. I can't.
No, it's in a horse. It's whatever the horse intakes when it's in their dung or their poo.
Oh, yeah, of course, what goes in comes out.
And then backyard cultivation have used hardwood pellets, grills, substrate. That is good, but it's been hard for me to find good sources of straw. Well, the straw, it's real simple. Just buy some straw and cover, put it in a big old plastic bag. Make sure it's moist for 3 days. It's not easy, not fun, but you give that a shot because that sterilizes it. Yeah. Alrighty, there's that question. So.
Hi, sorry. One last thing. You were covering this topic earlier, but I didn't really quite get a grasp onto it. And I'm also quite new to this, but fungi can go pretty large in terms of the area that mycelium grows through. How do they exactly decide which places the fruiting bodies will grow on the surface?
Well, that's a good question. I think fungi are intelligent. They seek out, they have different enzymes. When they approach a certain tree, they exchange different enzymes with specific trees. If you go to a different tree, a different enzyme goes out to exchange sugar for carbon. So it's not all known, but the fungi are intelligent, and they will go seek out and adjust to the area they're in and communicate and attach itself and cohabitat with the plants. And hopefully either it's lettuce and carrots that you like to eat. And so.
Mind if I come in here? I'm pretty new to this like whole mushroom thing, and I found it very interesting because personally, I live in a very small space, and you were talking about growing oyster mushrooms in these bags. But like for me, I don't know the first hand about like what mushrooms, like what they necessarily require. I think you kind of went over like, having like have your straw and your like hardwood sit in like water for a few days to sterilize it. But I don't necessarily know how to like, well, I think you kind of flashed the instructions of like how to grow mushrooms in these plastic bags. And I would love to learn like more about it because I think it's something, I personally can do. And do mushrooms need to be in a dark environment? Do you need to like have a spray bottle to water them? I don't really know how to grow mushrooms, to be honest.
Okay. That's a real good question. Since I'm gonna be have more time in March because I'm gonna be starting working less, I can lead a little workshop on that maybe in April. So I'll connect with Natalie and I'll set up a little workshop for that. And the first time I brought my oyster home from a little outside workshop, I hung it in the bathroom where the shower is. And just taking a shower, and it absorbed. It had all the moisture it needed.
Really?
And another time, I had an oyster bag in the backyard, and so I thought it was dry, even though they said don't water it for 2 weeks. I couldn't resist. I watered the thing with a misting bottle, and in the next few days, it got all moldy. So, that's what it is. You gotta experiment. Next time when I had another oyster bag, I let it go. Nope, I'm not gonna water this one. And sure enough, it flowered. And when you have a bag like that, you can re-inoculate it, but when I do that workshop in April, please come and join and I'll show you what I do. And we need more workshops. So thank you for saying that, and I'll show you what we can do. So don't forget, Natalie, I'll be contacting you.
Agreed that we need more workshops. Our
Yes.
science fair participation at the Randall on March 4th is a good way to learn beginner cultivation. We're going to help people make little tiny bags that will eventually turn into oyster mushrooms. So if you're available on March 4th, please come to the Randall Museum and we'll get you started, at least with the basics. And that will spark a lot in you, I think.
That was a great question. And
Does anybody else have a question? Looks like somebody wants to know, what did your wife say about the oyster bag in the shower? Was she okay with that?
she did. I had to put it up in a corner, and but you can't have it too close to the walls because it might get contaminated. So, yeah, she gets the hang of it. You know, as long as I tell her in advance now, because I didn't tell her about the blender, and I got hell for that. But as long as I use my blender, use my refrigerator, and tell her when I'm going to hang something in the shower, she's good now. So
Especially if it comes with delicious dinner later.
that's true. Yeah, cook up those oysters, pretend they're chicken. Woohoo!
Yeah.
I was a vegetarian. I was a vegetarian for 3 years, so those oysters came in handy.
I'm sorry, you were a vegetarian for 3 years?
I was, yeah.
Aren't
I
you
did a
currently
yoga.
a butcher?
I'm a butcher, yeah.
I'm glad to
So,
see you came around.
So for 3 years, I went to this yoga immersion of 1 week workshop, and I gave up coffee, and I went, but I couldn't give up the coffee, but I went vegan for 3 years. I had
Wow.
my I had my urges of meat satisfied by smelling the neighbors' barbecues.
That's great. And also eating
It's also when
mushrooms. They're very meaty, right?
They are. Yeah. Carbon. Right.
Well, very cool, Enrique. Thank you for everything. If we don't have any other questions,
I have one question or
please go
a
ahead.
little something that I saw today that I thought was sort of interesting. There's a company called Adapt Ag Tech that is a Canadian vertical farming startup partnering with Reef Technology to bring its mushroom growing shipping containers to major cities across the United States. So they're going to have these containers that people can buy, and then I guess they have like 100 different varieties of mushrooms, or a lot of them, and they're going to send them out to the people who lease these containers. So anyways, it's not exactly what the topic is, but I thought you guys might be interested in it. It seemed fascinating little piece of news today.
My brother mentioned a similar enterprise, and you too can be a mushroom farmer for the low price of $180,000. Personally, I prefer Enrique's model, where we use what we have and not spend our retirement on the enterprise, but it is a cool concept. The idea of a plug and play mushroom farm is very cool. And I wish them the best, but I am more aligned with Enrique's model.
Sure, that's what this club seems to be.
Interesting. Yep.
But very cool news. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Well, talking about those mushrooms farms, actually, like I remember seeing online these essentially these mushroom spawn bags, essentially. Well, I think they're filled with wood chip, and essentially what you do, I think you leave them in a dark space, you cut a hole in the bag, and then just I think after a while it just starts growing.
Yeah.
Different other
Yeah,
types
they're
of edible
inoculated.
mushrooms. Oh, okay, yeah.
You just inoculate them with the kind of fungi you want to grow, whether it's oyster or something else. And those are all saprophytic decomposing mushrooms, so the straw is their food. And, one thing I learned, mixing a little bit of molasses with a little bit of water, sometimes they like that. Like we like candy, they like molasses.
It's all about the sugars.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Well, I think the little mushroom grow bags are a fun introduction to growing mushrooms on your own. And once they've fruited once or twice, it's easy to take that remaining mycelium and propagate it from there. The way Enrique describes. Yeah, it's a fun project. Low bar for entry.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, everybody.
Enrique.
If we don't have any more questions tonight, I would like to thank Enrique on behalf of the entire MSSF. And also Mike McCurdy. He is unable to sort of show Enrique out of the meeting because he is out of power due to high winds. So he's not here at the moment. Wow. Enrique, do you have any parting comments?
Just want to say, pick up those cardboard boxes and start growing something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazon is going to help us feed ourselves.
Also, if you don't have a place to grow it, go to your local park, because sometimes they have piles of wood chips. Don't tell them, just inoculate them. Come back later and get your oysters or
Right
whatever
on.
it is you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
gorilla. Be a gorilla mushroom grower. I love
There you
that.
go.
Go
Yeah.
rogue.
You have your own patch because you started it.
That's right.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody. And hopefully
Thank
it was
you,
a
Enrique.
little interesting. And I'll see everybody in the near future.
Thank you, Enrique.
Enrique.
And thank you to all of you that attended. We appreciate you coming. And if you're not a member, please join. We